Coming up on Almost Adults. I like Spider-Man 3.
Everyone would have a story because no one's really just a Lyft driver.
The guy looks at me, he's like, we're his band. I'm his
You
bass.
idiot!
My friend Gage is gonna talk to you. Oh, and Dan, he'll be there, too. Well, they're gonna talk about the things they wanna say. Speak about their lives from day to day. They're gonna dive into the nuts and bolts. Welcome y'all to Always Adults.
It's actually Almost Adults. All right, Dan, hit us with our first sponsor.
So our sponsor is the concept of emotions. If you ever feel dead inside, go with emotions. Get yourself some emotions. You'll probably feel worse.
I've never used this product myself, but believe me, I think I can feel even more horrible than I already do.
It's a great feeling.
Self-loathing. And it's also brought to you by Pokemon Snap on the Nintendo 64. Photograph over 60 Pokemon in terrains like beach, tunnel, and many more.
So go out and get yourself a Pokemon today.
All right. So with all of our made-up sponsors out of the way, we have on our podcast of Almost Adults, hey, welcome everybody. It's been a while. We have Mr. Pat Francis on the podcast.
Hello, Gage. Hello, Daniel.
How's it going, Pat?
I'm well into adulthood. I'm not even close to almost an adult. I'm way into it. I don't act like it.
That's interesting because whenever we have like an older guest on the podcast, they're like, yeah, I don't feel like an adult at all. But you say you feel like an adult 100%.
Well, my age tells me I'm an adult. My actions tell me that I'm a child. But I think I'm twice. How old are you, Gage?
I'm 24.
Yeah, I'm twice as old. I'm twice as old as you. Plus, Daniel, how old are you?
I'm going to be 30 soon. So
Oh, I didn't know
I'm
that.
not twice as old as you yet.
Everyone is growing up in their own way at their own pace. So, Pat, I've been trying to get you for quite a while on this podcast.
What's easy to get me, it's just the schedule wasn't permitting.
No,
I was
no.
ready and willing.
You were. And I wanted to go back, but I want to say it's been about 2 or 3 years since I've been trying to get you on here. You're my white whale.
Did you feel like I was leading you on in those emails when I would say, yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know how people are out here. People are like, yeah, totally go on. But I have about like 10 different things lined up. So maybe after the 11th one.
Look, as someone who has to book an occasional musical guest on my podcast, I know what it's like to be strung along. But until someone gives me a definitive no, I just keep pushing.
Yeah. People should know how to say no.
Yeah, there's a fine line between persistence and annoyance. But I mean, like Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees. I email him all the time and he always answers, but we haven't been able to schedule it yet. But he's never said no. Like if he said, no, I really don't want to do your podcast, I'd be like, oh, well, that's mean. But then I wouldn't contact him again. You know what I mean? And that would be
absolutely, yeah.
But that's how it goes.
I don't think we've properly introduced Pat at all.
No,
yet.
let's go ahead and do it.
No.
Speaking of musical guests, he's
I just assumed everyone knew who I was.
yeah, everyone knows Pat. He's just kind of around.
There'll be a description of this podcast,
Yeah,
right?
it's gonna be-
they'll
People
know.
don't read.
Oh, that's true. Well, ramp it up then. Let me hear the nice things.
All right. Today we got Pat Francis on the podcast. He is the host of the Rock Solid podcast. He is also a stand-up comic. He is also a stand-up dad. And he is a stand-up guy.
I would not call myself a stand-up comedian anymore.
No? Yeah.
I was a full-time stand-up comedian in the late 80s, early 90s, but I haven't made a living doing stand-up for a long time, and I haven't done stand-up comedy for a long time. So I wouldn't classify myself as that. If you want to call me a comedian, I still feel like I'm a funny person. So I still feel like
on
I'm a
occasion,
comedian. But but as far as the actual standing up, and doing the comedy. No, I don't do that.
Well, I
anymore.
had a really good rift with stand-up guy, stand-up dad, and stand-up.
You did. That was, you know, and
I thought it was a great
I liked
riff.
2/3 of that. It was fine for me. I just want to be transparent and honest. If people are like, hey, where can I go see that guy do stand-up? Although they won't, after they hear me on this, they'll go, that's probably a terrible stand-up.
You might just do the open mic at like a bar down.
Yeah,
the street.
exactly.
There-
That's
The
what
open
they
mic
might
at
think.
Flappers.
No, I do always say my background is stand-up comedy though, because it was my job for 7 years. When I filled out my taxes, that was all my money was made from stand-up comedy. So
That's
where
awesome.
were you doing stand up then?
I was based out of Chicago, so basically all around the, you know, any place that was within 4 or 5 hours from Chicago. Then I did a college tour for a year and a half, so I was in 42 of the 50 states.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, bombing at many colleges.
I mean that's kind of a rite of passage when it comes to doing stand up comedy is
Yeah,
to,
I think
to
so.
bomb on stage, because then you learn from that. No one's going on stage and immediately is funny.
I got to be honest. Sometimes bombing could be as much fun as killing.
Yeah.
You don't really, and you don't really like you said. You don't really learn anything from killing every night.
Yeah.
You only learn from the mistakes in stand-up, and that's what I feel.
Okay.
I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
Look, it's definitely fun to go and rock the house and have a great show.
Yeah.
But you know,
But it's a lot better to bomb. Believe me.
well, it's fun to be in the back of the room and watch your friends bomb. That was great, because then you'd go in the back and it'd be like, "Oh man, I tanked it. Oh yeah, you sucked."
In college, I used to hang around with the stand-up comedy club. I wasn't actually a stand-up comic myself, or never really attempted to be. I
Just got
into
it through mitosis.
Yeah. Well, I got into it because I was doing a lot of filmmaking in college, and one of my partners, who was making a lot of these films with me, he was a stand-up comedian, and he would oftentimes get those guys in to be like actors for any of the sketches and whatnot. There was one guy in particular where if he knew someone was bombing on stage, he had this enormous laugh, but it would be like this one note, ha! So if they
That's
weren't
nice.
doing well, you would just hear him in the back.
That's nice. Daniel, by the way, has a T-shirt on from one of my favorite DC comic book superheroes, Nightwing.
Yes.
Yeah, you're a
that's
big superhero guy, aren't you?
I am a big superhero guy. I already have my tickets to see Endgame this Thursday, 7
Yes.
o'clock.
Everyone who will listen to this be like, dude, we know Endgame. Come on. Yeah.
But I mean, I've seen Infinity War 7 times,
It's a great movie.
start to finish. I mean,
I thought it was okay the first time, but after seeing it again, I'm like, this is
it's
really
so good.
solid movie.
I was
yeah.
the last time I watched it. I think I was on a plane. And I'm like, no, I'll just put this on, and then I'll fast forward to the good parts.
Yeah, like
it's
the
all good parts.
fighting parts.
It's
Yeah.
all good parts.
Yeah.
And it moves too. It's like there's no downtime, and when there is like something dramatic, it still just moves. I am so excited.
Did you get it for Thursday or Friday?
For Thursday?
Oh my
7
God.
p.m.
Yeah. Did you get it from the AMC website?
It crashed. It was
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
So I went.
Yeah.
I just drove the theater near our house is like a mile and a half away. I just
Mm-hmm.
drove straight to the theater and did it at the little kiosk
In real life?
in real time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was like when
you
I-
are a
you
dedicated
went
dedicated
full
fan right
analog.
there.
I felt like when I was in college, when you would get concert tickets, you would have to like wait outside all night to get good. There was no internet or anything. We would pull up a tin can with a string and would say, "Maggie, get me an outside line," and I need tickets to see Van Halen, is what we would say.
I haven't been to a lot of concerts out here. I got to be honest. I've seen like.
Where are you from?
I'm from Niceville, Florida.
Can we swear on this podcast?
Sure.
Where the fuck are you from? You're from where?
Niceville, Florida.
Okay.
It's near like Destin, Fort Walton Beach,
Wait,
Pensacola.
did you say Niceville?
Niceville?
you
Yes.
spell that?
Niceville?
Niceville.
Okay, it's exactly how I
That's a very pleasant name of where you. My hometown in Pennsylvania is Hollidaysburg.
That is a very
Isn't that very-
muddled name. Yeah.
Hollidaysburg. It's very,
Hollidaysburg.
And where are you
Yes.
from, Daniel?
I'm
Shit town.
as well. Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Oh, okay, I know Grand Rapids. I've been there
Yeah,
many
people know
times.
that, yeah.
Yeah. Lots of comedy in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah,
Lots of comedy
there is.
clubs there. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Niceville. And you've been out here for how long?
Oh my God, yeah. It was like 2015, so it's coming up on 4 years.
You came out here when you were like early 20s?
Yeah, just 20.
By yourself?
Yeah.
That's ballsy.
Wow.
I know. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't.
I came out, and you didn't come out with anyone. You just came out on your own.
Okay, my cousin is out here.
Okay, so you had a
and-
support system.
So I had somewhat of a support system.
Okay.
My parents were like, "Look, we'll help you through this, however X amount of time."
Yeah.
And oh my God, yeah, so much has changed since then. Like,
I hope so. I see you have facial hair now.
I'm not supposed to. I was supposed to shave it off.
I just mean you can have facial hair now. When you first moved out here,
No, I just shaved a lot.
It just sounds like
Now
you're
it's
not
just like once a week.
like you're not allowed to have facial hair.
you're
No,
allowed to.
Look, hey, the
you have a
sponsors of
job-
this Pokemon podcast are strictly anti-facial hair.
Do you have a job out here? What do you do?
I do. I'm at a marketing agency right now for video games.
Okay, and you like video games, so you love
Yeah.
this job.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah.
What's your job there? What do you do? What's your?
I'm a post PA, so mainly
Okay,
get
good,
lunches, sometimes edit,
fine.
sometimes make different encodes of stuff. Yeah.
That's fine. You feel like you're in there, in the industry, no matter what level you're at. If you're doing something.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in, and honestly, this marketing agency, I don't want to give out their name, but they're super supportive of me. And even like podcast and small videos I do, they're like, "Hey, watch your video, it's great."
Oh, good. That's really nice.
Yeah, and that makes a world of difference in a job, because the last job I was at, I was
At the prison.
Warner Brothers Studio.
Wait, are we-
Fuck you. Yeah, I'm just whatever. Who cares? They're not going to listen to it.
Okay, we are gonna.
If Mr. Warner Brothers listens to this, he can talk to me personally.
Well, there was something that happened to Mr. Warner Brother recently, so we're not gonna.
Oh yeah, no, he got accused for sexual assault. Fuck him.
Are you saying this is going to be this should be edited out, Daniel? Is that what you're saying?
No idea. Well, I'm not working there anymore, but I.
Yeah, we're not working there anymore. Who cares? Fuck him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were a pretty awful place to
Wow.
to
All right.
work for. Yeah.
Good to
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Well, they make those wonderful DC movies.
Oh my God! Have you seen Justice League? It is the best movie since Plan 9 from Outer Space.
I got to be honest. When I saw Justice League at the theater, I was expecting to really hate it.
Right.
And when your expectations are so low,
You kinda
didn't-
enjoy it.
It didn't
Yeah.
seem terrible to me. I did like that Wonder Woman scene at the beginning is kick ass. I did like when she saves the hostages, the
Yeah,
kids.
it was just
Yeah.
like a ripoff of Dark Knight, though.
I know, I agree, but it was good because she's good, and
I do like her
I do
as
enjoy
an actor.
Jason Momoa very much. As I love the surfer bro Aquaman character. I did not like the Aquaman movie, but I do enjoy him. And I thought we got the best Superman from Henry Cavill that we've ever seen in the Justice League movie.
Yeah, I
He
feel-
seemed to be having fun.
I feel bad for that guy.
Yeah.
He was cast in like 3 movies, and he just plays this moody alien. Like, I don't want to save people that much.
Superman blows. It's the hardest character to bring to the screen because
100%.
he can never fight someone. He can't punch a bank robber. He'll kill him. He always has to. A plane's crashing. He's always got to do that. Look, he'd be doing that all once a week. Who cares? But so Superman, to me, it's an unfilmable character. And where are we going with this? Shazam's great. I will say that. Did you see Shazam?
I didn't see Shazam. No.
Did you see it?
I have not yet.
I've seen it twice. It's really
Yeah,
great.
it looks. They cracked the code. They're like, people want to have fun during movies.
But it's also very dark. I would say if parents are listening, and they're not, but if they are, it's PG-13, and it's PG. If there's such a thing as a hard PG-13, don't take your 8, 9, 10-year-old because they're going to be petrified. Because the villain in this movie is very dark, and the hero is very light. So. You know who's who, but the villain, there's some stuff. I actually gasped like twice at 2 things the villain did. I was like, oh, what the hell just happened? So, but it's really great. It's a great one. Okay. It's my favorite DC movie of the recent stuff.
Right.
Nice.
Did we go off on a tangent? Is this what we do
yeah, we're
here?
definitely.
This is like the podcast right
All right,
here,
good.
just
Yeah.
full of tangents.
Excellent.
Okay,
All right. Well, we're done.
all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
we're
this
done.
was
Great
It's
podcast.
fantastic.
All right.
Loved
See you all
it.
next week.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Sure, yeah.
I host a podcast, a Rock Solid podcast. Yeah. But I won't go into host mode, but I do want to ask you a question. Do you have a favorite Marvel movie, Gage?
Honestly, like recent Marvel movies are just overall.
Yeah, pretty blanket. They've all been pretty great recently.
Yeah. I love Spider-Man 2. The original Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, that was good. That was great.
Doc Ock. Logan is one of my favorite
Logan's
movies.
terrific.
Just period. I want to say out of the recent Marvel movies, I want to go Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Because he also has that... Captain America has that Superman problem where he's like, I'm good, and I'm a Boy Scout. But you take him out of this good and evil kind of time period and put him in nowadays.
But he's not
really
invincible. He's not invincible either, and he doesn't have flight and all that kind of stuff.
That's true. I'm just saying on a like emotional level, he's just like same guy.
Up until Infinity War, Winter Soldier was my favorite. And Winter Soldier still might be my favorite. I find that Winter Soldier is a movie that you could tell a person who says, I don't like superhero movies, they could still watch Winter Soldier and enjoy it because it's kind of like spy and espionage and action, and that's just how I feel. But Chris Evans is great. Yeah. What about you,
Is that
Daniel?
his name, Chris Evans?
Yeah, Chris Evans.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
There's three Chris's. There's Chris Pratt, Chris Hemsworth, and Chris Evans.
And Chris Pine.
And Chris Pine. But
and Chris Rock.
There's a lot of Chris's, sure. I didn't know we were just going to name Chris's.
Welcome to Chris Cast.
Daniel, do you have a favorite Marvel movie?
At least for the recent Marvel movies, I really enjoyed Ragnarok.
Ragnarok is great.
Oh my God, yes. Never mind.
Fantastic.
Fuck Winter Soldier, Ragnarok all the way.
But like Ragnarok's like a comedy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
They twisted it around, but I mean that was kind of somewhat in the formula, especially when the first Iron Man came out.
Yeah.
Like that was directed by Jon Favreau, and he set this tone where it's not just a superhero movie, but it's a comedic superhero movie. So that kind of laid the grounds for a lot of these other like more independent directors, which Marvel has been bringing in to like really lift up the franchise, especially with like the Russo brothers.
Russo brothers, coming from like Arrested Development and Community. Yeah.
It's just it's unbelievable that they would be able to. Like when I read that, I'm like, are these guys going to be able to do this?
Yeah,
they did it. They do it, man.
They
really
did it for
well.
like 4 movies now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
coming up on 4. Yeah.
But the first superhero movie that I was just in love with was the first Spider-Man.
Hell yeah.
I was in.
Yeah, that started a new wave after because we didn't have a superhero movie for so long before Spider-Man.
Yeah, and
happened.
it really set the genre of like this is how it's going to work. This is how an origin story works, and what Sam Raimi did just to like set the tone of any superhero movie after that was just absolutely brilliant. And I was in grade school at the time, and I saw the midnight screening of that show or of that movie, and it was fantastic. What?
Dan,
Hi.
your age is showing.
Oh,
We my wife and I went to see Spider-Man when it opened. We went down to the Grove.
Oh yeah.
We're in there. We're getting our tickets, and because it wasn't like you didn't get your tickets for a week in advance. You just it was a different thing back then. You could just go and
Right,
get
and
tickets.
Spider-Man was not nearly as big as he is.
Yeah,
now.
no, exactly. And Tobey Maguire was in the lobby of the Grove
Oh.
on the phone, and I could hear he was. It wasn't like meet Tobey Maguire. He was just
there.
He was just there, and he's like, embracing what was happening. And he was on the phone. I could hear him. He's like, oh, "It's amazing. There's so many people in the lobby. I think it's going to be good." So pretty
man.
excited. Then
God bless Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire, if you're listening, come on the show.
many years later, I went to see the abysmal Spider-Man 3 at the ArcLight, and he came out beforehand and introduced the film. And that was great because we didn't know it was going to suck. So we're like, "Oh my God, this is so awesome!" Then we're like, "Oh, what is going on? What happened with this one?"
Hot take. I like Spider-Man 3, and I could watch it 4 times over more than the Amazing Spider-Man.
Do you like it for the wrong reasons? No. Or do you like it?
I'm thinking I'm liking it. There are certain aspects I'm like, okay, the dancing's bad. Okay, the jazz scene is bad.
finger guns. Yeah.
I love the finger guns. Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Anyways, I really like his relationship with like Mary Jane, how it's just kind of pushed, and I like Sandman as the villain. Venom sucks. I will always say that though.
Yeah.
Venom's rough in that.
He was rough in the recent movie too. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't mind the recent Venom because again the reviews were horrible. So I'm like, oh, here we go. And then like halfway through, I turned to my nephew who's 30, and I go, this isn't that bad. He's like, no, I like it. And I go, yeah, I think I like it too.
It was a lot of fun. Like
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I really think that, and it made so much money that there's going to be a Venom 2.
Yeah.
And I think Venom 2 will actually be great because I think they're really gonna.
I think so too, because they're going to embrace all the parts.
And they're gonna be like, hey, the reviews weren't great. We lucked out with this box office, so now let's give the people something great. And Tom Hardy was great.
Tom Hardy was great. I think the scene where I was on board is when he goes into the restaurant and Venom's just like grabbing food and like shoving it in his mouth.
It's so
and then
fun.
he gets into the lobster tank, which I guess was not planned at all. He just got
just
in
did
there.
it?
was
Yeah.
it?
Good for him.
So when I saw that scene, I was like, I'm fully on board for this movie. Same thing with like Aquaman as well. I understand that Aquaman is not a good movie, but when you see the octopus drummer, I'm like, okay, I'm all for this.
Well, I have to be honest. That was one step over the line for me. Can I tell you something about? And spoiler alert: if you haven't seen Aquaman,
Yeah.
Also,
don't see Aquaman. There you go.
So the main villains, it's first of all, it's like Thor because it's like, Atlantis is Asgard, and then we have two brothers and for the throne and blah blah blah. Shut up.
Underwater Thor.
Underwater Thor, and it's Jason Momoa could play Thor if they
In
didn't,
another time.
in another time. But this Black Manta,
Yeah.
not Thor. Sorry, in Aquaman hands Black Manta his ass twice in this movie. One time it's on land and he beats him, and that's when Aquaman's not even at his full power because he hasn't found his trident yet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so he's kicked Black Manta's ass twice.
Okay.
So then the end credit sequence comes up, and we find out Black Manta's still alive. And Black Manta sits up, and he says to whoever the other guy is in the room with him, he says, "Tell Aquaman I'm coming for him." And I laughed out loud. I'm like, "Ooh, Aquaman would be very scared." I was like, "Are you kidding me?
You gotta have a good villain,
You're
man.
a zero." Yeah, he was a zero. Then the Black Manta costume looks exactly like it does in the comic book, but that doesn't work.
Doesn't translate?
No, it doesn't work for real life. It looks like a Power Rangers villain.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
To be fair, Green Goblin also looked pretty bad too.
Yeah.
Back in both movies actually. He was in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Fuck that movie.
My nephew says that Aquaman is 10 of the worst movies you've seen all rolled up into one movie. He says it
I
has
kind of want that's
it has
sold. I'll see it now.
He
Yeah.
said it has 1,000 plot points. I'm like, it does. It doesn't know what it wants to do. Everything. They're on land. They're in the desert. I'm like, what is going on?
My favorite is that when they do the lower
Daniel liked it though, so I'm sorry.
I'm not. I acknowledge it's not good. Like even the lower thirds where they're trying to establish where they are, and they're like somewhere in the ocean. Like it actually says somewhere
in the ocean.
It's like somewhere in the Atlantic, somewhere in the Sahara Desert. I'm like, if you're gonna put that in there, like you're doing an establishing shot already. I know we're at the ocean. I know we're in the desert.
I get it.
You might as well be specific at this point.
I got to do another pet peeve.
Welcome to Pet Peeves with Pat.
I'm telling you, superhero pet peeves with Pat. In Justice League, Aquaman, he's down in Atlantis, and Steppenwolf is down there, and they fight, and Steppenwolf kind of injures him, and then Mira forms this like, what do you call it? Big round. This is a sphere around Aquaman so he can be revived, and then I think they get out of there in this sphere. Okay, in Aquaman, Aquaman gets injured on land, and Mira steals a boat to get Aquaman off this island.
Right. And
They steal a boat. They're the two of the most powerful swimmers in the world. We already know she
Wasn't
can
he injured?
but she can put this sphere around him. She did it in the last movie. And so then when they're out on this boat, these like water zombies attack the boat. And it's a cool scene.
Yeah.
But then I find out that James Wan is now going to make a movie about these water zombies. I'm like, so was that scene just put in there so that they could spin that
it
off?
off, yeah.
It like didn't make any sense. I was like, why are they on a fucking boat? Why is Aquaman on a boat? All right, I'm done.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I'm
that's
done with
what-
this show. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't bring any of this superhero stuff.
I'm
up.
hijacking the show. Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Back to you, Gage. Back to you.
You have a new documentary called Uplyft.
Yes, Uplyft. We are currently editing it. We have about 40 hours worth of footage. And so for the people listening, what happened was one morning I was driving my daughter to high school, and we started to talk about Lyft because she would use Lyft from time to time. And we were just talking, and we were saying, wonder how far you could take a Lyft. And we were both like, I don't know. And I said, see if you could take a Lyft from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. So she pulls out her Lyft app. She's like, yeah, you could do that. And then Ezra said, I wonder if you could Lyft across the country. I'm like, geez, I don't know. And then Ezra said, that would make a great documentary. And then I said, I'm doing that. And she said, what? I go, I'm going to do that. She goes, what do you mean you're going to do it? I go, that's doable because a lot of times when you're in Hollywood and you want to, whatever you want to do
Right.
to be in the entertainment business, sometimes you have an idea and it seems so exhausting or so difficult that you just kind of feel like, I would love to do that. I just don't know if I can do it. But this felt like something I can do this.
Yeah.
Because I would watch that show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, the Jerry Seinfeld show.
Yeah. Yes.
And it looks like they just do GoPros in the car. So I'm like,
Right.
And it looks,
and GoPros are fairly cheap nowadays, right? Yeah.
So I'm like, just get GoPros, throw them up in the car. I go, this is doable. So I just went home and I told my wife, I go, Ezra had this idea. We were chatting and I want to do that. And my
I
wife
like
said,
how you threw it on Ezra too. You're like,
Well,
by the way,
I had to give her-
Ezra had this idea.
I probably said it was my idea, and then Ezra goes, "Wait a minute," and I was like, "Oh, did I steal your idea?" So no, I give Ezra full credit. So I called my friend Aaron Gould, who's a filmmaker, and he's done web series, and he knows how to edit and direct and all that stuff. And we get along really well. We have the same type of sense of humor. And I said, would you want to do this with me? And he was totally on board. So then he has a family and kids. So we just had to figure out when we were going to do it. And we shot it last August we gave ourselves 10 days, but we actually did it in 8 days. And we traveled from Santa Monica Pier to Boston Harbor, coast to coast, water to water, entirely by
amazing.
Lyft. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, if you're going to travel cross country, this is not the most economical way to do it.
no, it sounds
Flying is still the cheapest.
and safest.
And actually, you'll meet more people on your flight too. We only met 30 drivers, but on the flight, you could meet hundreds of people.
What flights are you going on that you're like handshaking everyone and say, hey, I'm Pat. Nice to meet you.
We're filming a documentary about flight. But so we were through 13 states. We had 30 drivers, a nice cross section. We had white, black, gay, straight, men, women. Part of it was to see if it could actually be done. Can we actually do it? Will drivers let us put the GoPros in the car? And then the other was to interview the drivers and get their personal stories. Because whenever I take a Lyft, as you can tell, I like to talk. So even if I'm just taking a Lyft around...
I noticed that, yeah.
Even if I just take a Lyft around town, you talk to people and I'm like, oh, that Lyft driver is an MMA fighter, or this Lyft driver is a tree expert. I mean, it's crazy. So I knew that everyone would have a story because no one's really just a Lyft driver. Although some people we met were. That was their job, and they were quite happy to do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was pretty cool. And I will tell you this. We left the morning of August 20th from Santa Monica. We didn't even try this until the 19th, in the evening. Mm-hmm. I was like, we should probably maybe call a Lyft and see if someone will even let us put the cameras in their car. So 3 Lyfts in a row, none of them would let us put the cameras up. So we're thinking, we're supposed to start traveling cross country tomorrow. This might not even be doable just because no one will let us do it. Yeah. But we're like, okay, well, we're still going to try. So the morning of the 20th, we get a Lyft I live in Woodland Hills. We get a Lyft from my house to Santa Monica because we wanted to start in Santa Monica. Right. We wanted to start at the ocean. So on the way down there, we're telling our Lyft driver what we're about to do. And he's like, oh my God, that is such an amazing idea. This is so cool. And he's like, that is awesome. Good luck. I wish you guys good luck. And I say to him, I go, now, if we would have asked you if we could put cameras up in your car, he goes, I would have said no. So we're like, fuck.
Even the guy who thinks it's a good idea won't even.
Oh, man, you're going to do great.
Yeah.
You're going to do well. Just fuck off, though.
Santa Monica, we're shooting some B-roll. We're doing the stuff. We're in Santa Monica. We're getting ready to, all that kind of stuff. And then I go, okay, here we go. And I call our first driver, and he says yes.
That's amazing.
And then the second driver said yes. And then the further you got along the trip, like when you say, when you were like 2.5 days in and you would tell the people, 2 days ago we left Santa Monica, they would be like, wow, okay, let's do this.
Where were you 2 days ago or 2 days later?
Boy.
Or do we have to watch the documentary to find out?
Might have been in Wyoming, might have been in Nebraska.
So
that's just off the top of my head. We might have been in Barstow. No.
Yeah, you could have been in Alaska for all we know.
Yeah.
You got to watch the documentary.
That's right. You have to see it.
So you went through a total of 30 drivers. Did you notice that there was like a limit to how far you could go, or did you have like set destinations that you were going to hit?
Give you some backstory.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
I was plotting the course, and I was doing it old school. Like I bought an atlas because I really needed to see.
What's an atlas?
Exactly. I really needed to be able to spread out and see what would be the next big city that I think would have Lyft. Oh, okay, here. Like,
oh, I see. Yeah.
I mean, you could do that on your phone and scroll, but I really needed to see it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then I would pull out my Lyft app and I would type in, Los Angeles to San Bernardino, and it would say, it would tell you how many miles. It would tell you how much that Lyft ride would cost. Now, what the Lyft app doesn't tell you is it doesn't tell you if there's Lyft or not in that town. See what I mean? So I plotted the course all the way through, like up into Colorado and stuff. And then we hit a point where we got dropped off in a town, but there wasn't Lyft in that town.
Oh, no.
And so I woke up at like 5 a.m. I just had a weird feeling. It was kind of odd. And I checked and I was like, there's not Lyft. So I woke Aaron up. I go, there's not Lyft in this town. He's like, what are we going to do? I go, I don't know. I don't know what to. So we would get all the drivers signed release forms.
Yeah.
So
Smart.
I go, okay, so a guy named Keith dropped us off here. So I pull out his release form. He didn't put a phone number, but he did put his email address. I go, I'll email Keith. I'll see if he'll be willing to come here and then turn on his Lyft app and we'll hire him from here. But now I send Keith an email. I check my email constantly.
Right.
But I don't know if Keith is one of those guys. He might be a guy that checks it. Well, I check it before bed. You know what I mean? And we need to, we can't lose a whole day. So I send him an email and about an hour later, I get a text and it's Keith. And he says, what time do you want me there? So,
Oh, my God. God bless you, Keith.
yeah, Keith was a lifesaver. So, but at one point we got to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and the only other town in Wyoming that has Lyft is Laramie. And Laramie is west, and we're not heading west, we're heading east. So the next town that has Lyft from Cheyenne, Wyoming is North Platte, Nebraska. That's
Never heard
about
of that,
that's
yeah.
about 275 miles from Cheyenne, Wyoming. So now we got to hope that what the Lyft driver we call is willing to not only cross state lines, but also drive us almost 300 miles.
And also filming his
And also
car,
film in his car. Lots of variables. And sure enough, the first guy, his name's Marvin. And after the third day, we started to present it this way to the drivers. Because the first 2 days, we've never done it. So we're stuttering and stammering, trying to explain what we're doing. So finally, we set on something where the driver would pull up and I'd say, Daniel, before you put our luggage in your car, I need to ask you a question. And then they would look kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then of course.
Yeah,
and I would
Why
say,
wouldn't you?
and then I would say, are you ready for an adventure? And they would that's what they would do. They would laugh or they would smile.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. You know, we said that to Marvin and he laughed. He goes, well, what do you got? And we told him what we were doing. He goes, well, let me call Mother and tell her I'll be a little bit late. Because he was an older gentleman, 10 kids and Christian gentleman, and took us where we needed to go.
Rad,
Yeah.
man.
We met amazing people that way that were just like willing to be along for the ride and willing to, and the people really opened up, and I couldn't figure out why they were opening up to two strangers. And then I realized they're in their car.
Yeah.
That's their safe space. They feel comfortable in their own car. So, and the cameras they're little cameras on the windshield.
Yeah, it's not like you have a huge production crew with like a boom
Exactly.
mic and
Yeah. So when we thought we would get stranded in places, we also didn't have a huge production crew that could take us to the next town. It was just the two of us. So we were stuck if we couldn't get to the next town. So it was fun. It was really an adventure. It really was.
Sounds like it. I'm eager to watch the documentary.
I want to see it myself.
This is reminding me a lot of, I think it was Craigslist Joe. I think that documentary. This guy,
Is this the guy who murdered people?
No.
Craigslist Joe. He's a murderer.
It does sound like a murder
Dude,
documentary.
I was almost murdered by my Craigslist roommate. Anyways, another
Yeah.
story. Go on.
But it was this guy who he decided to travel all around the U.S. as well, only using Craigslist. Like he just had his laptop, and he would this is before.
What does that mean? How do you use Craigslist to travel across?
So on Craigslist, there used to be an area where you could check for carpooling.
Okay.
So if someone's making like a long distance travel, so if I want to say go up to San Francisco from Los Angeles, and I put out there like, hey, does anyone else want to go? And if you go, like you can help split for gas and travel. And that's what he was offering, was just to tag along with people who were road tripping wherever they were going, and you just like followed where they were going. And once he got there, he was looking for places to stay, and he was able to find people who let him stay in his place.
That sounds boring. Watch my documentary.
Yeah, but I'm.
Thanks for taking.
I like how Pat listened to the entire thing,
yeah.
and he's like, wonderful.
I'm
now,
done.
Thanks for taking the shine off my thing, Daniel. Oh, that sounds exactly like this.
But I am truly fascinated by this because I know a lot of people have been in this situation before where they've been in a Lyft or an Uber, and you're only talking to the driver and you get to hear their story because you know that them driving is not what they did first. I met a guy
it's not their first choice.
It's not their
No.
passion. That's one of the questions I would often ask. I would say, what's your passion? I didn't want to say like, what else do you do? I tried to be very positive in the questioning. I didn't want to be like, this couldn't possibly be your job.
I have a difficult time doing that. And I do a podcast where I ask questions. I'm just very blunt. I'm like, what do you want to do?
We wanted people to feel comfortable. We wanted it to be Uplyft. It even sounds kind of a little cheesy.
100%.
But it just works. Yeah, it just kind of works.
It's a great title for the documentaries.
And the stories we got, and it is a positive thing. I even kept the swearing to a minimum. I feel like
you swearing.
I know.
Wow.
I feel like this is something that people will be able to watch with kids and to just be a fun ride. So
that's great. That's difficult to do nowadays because I can't be funny without saying the fuck word.
I know. Shazam's a hard PG-13. So did I stop your train of thought, Daniel? I'm sorry.
Well, there was a driver that I had met. He was really passionate about fish and aquariums and whatnot, and he actually started his own business.
It's amazing.
Where he was selling aquarium equipment, and he'd never gone into business before, and going into that, making that small shop it was just a nightmare for him. And then he decided to close up shop and fell into becoming a Lyft driver. And he absolutely loved it.
That's great. Wow. Yeah, we had a couple of people that were just Lyft drivers but loved it. They're like, I make my own hours. I have a set amount of money that I want to make per week. So I drive until I make that amount of money, and then I don't drive until Monday rolls around again. Or if I want to make a little extra money.
That's great self-discipline. I couldn't do that.
I know, that'd be great. Or they'll say, and if I want to make a little extra money, then I'll drive a little more. So it was pretty great.
That's great. Yeah. I could not do that documentary, man. As soon as I get in a Lyft, I just pop in my headphones. I try to be polite as possible about it, but look, I just want to go from point A to point B. I'm not looking for a conversation.
Gage, I think it would be really funny if you did a sequel to this documentary where you travel all the way across the country.
Yeah,
but all you do is you pop in your headphones and it's just like a full 2 hours of just like,
they will talk.
Hey,
they will talk.
Well, that was another thing about this. A lot of times when you get on a bus or on a plane or in a Lyft, you just want to decompress and just chill and maybe doze off or rest your eyes. When we got in these Lyfts, we had to be on 24/7. So when we would reach our end destination every night, we were exhausted. We were exhausted.
Yeah.
It was because you've been nonstop talking
because you're
engaging.
entertaining. Yeah.
Yes, and trying to be entertaining, hopefully, maybe funny at times, but your energy had to just be up the whole time. And it was.
I could barely do that for this podcast.
I know, it's crazy. I tuned out about 35 minutes ago. Anything? What else you got? Oh, you got more questions? You told me you had questions dating back from 2016.
2017. I thought we were going to get it in 2017. That wasn't the year. It's 2019. I wanted to talk about music more.
Your phone's gigantic.
I know, right? It's like a brick. I can just...
Is that an iPhone?
Yeah, it's an iPhone, and I put it on an Otter case, and
so you can do it's indestructible.
Yeah, don't test it out, but for all purposes, it's indestructible.
They don't see your phone. It is indestructible.
It is. It's gigantic.
Yeah, I could probably.
Okay, we're
there we go.
I would love it if he picked it up and the screen was cracked. No, I would love it. No, I would love it.
Yeah, it's like someone bombing.
As a matter of fact, Daniel, go over and stomp it with your heel.
Yeah, you don't have to. Dan, you're going to be fired if you do that. You're going to be absolutely. Yeah, the running gag on here is Dan is fired.
Dan's fired.
I get fired at least 5 times per episode.
What is your? Is this Gage's podcast and you're the co-host? Is it both of your podcasts? Is it your podcast and Gage talks too much?
What is it, Dan? Test time.
This is Gage's podcast, and he'll usually text me and say, "Hey, can you come on to my podcast?" And I say, "Yeah, I don't have anything else to do, so let's do this."
Dan's great, though. I love having him around, and he's always very careful with his questions. I just blurt out the first thing that comes to my mind.
You don't care.
Absolutely.
Now, who's recording and producing this episode today?
That would be you, Pat.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, you're welcome.
So you have creative control over what we say.
What if I give you the file and like everything, it's just me and Dan talking? Do people call you Dan? I just called you Dan.
Yeah, that's fine.
Or is it Daniel? What do you prefer?
Either or.
What do you prefer?
Dan is great if you're just wanting to quickly get my attention.
Which is what I just did.
Yeah.
But you prefer Daniel?
Yeah. Okay. Daniel just sounds more formal, but...
No, I never say Daniel.
Yeah.
Whatever. Fuck you. I don't care.
Thanks.
So you had a music.
But yeah, if you cut out all the Gage part, I wouldn't be. I'd be like, whatever. He controls
there
it.
needs to be like a hint of Gage, like he starts talking just for a little bit, and then you just clearly cut
and
him.
then he like
Just a strong
opens and
cut,
closes.
hard cut.
If I had time to do that, I would do that just as a gag and send you that file. But
You can't spell Gage without gag. I'm quick on the puns. I'm quick.
music. We have vastly different tastes because probably because of our age for sure, the age gap.
Yeah, the most recent band that I'm into is called Planet Booty. Dan, have you heard of Planet Booty?
I have not.
They're great. They're a very rear-ended centric band, and they just talk about how much they love getting naked and hanging out with females.
All the songs are about booty.
They're about booty. They had a whole music video where they're in a church and they're worshiping the booty.
They got a big booty hanging on a crucifix.
Well, they have like this chrome-plated booty that they have, and they lift it up and they go, booty! So anyways, shout out to Planet Booty. That's what I've been listening to.
Do you listen to this as a goof, or do you listen to this like it's real music?
I listen to this authentically, 100%.
The same way you watch Spider-Man 3 is the way you listen to this music.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be
You
fair,
had me questioning my life choices right there. Yeah.
to be fair, like this is a band that is just out front and saying like, okay, we're just gonna sing about booties and whatnot. But I mean, bands have been doing this for a long time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not just like as upfront about it, pun intended.
So,
And Daniel, what's the newest band you've been listening to?
I recently saw the Watsky concert when he was here in Los Angeles.
rad.
My oldest daughter Ezra is a big fan of Watsky. He's amazing.
I saw his first viral video with the white kid that raps fast. I remember seeing that, and there was a cat in the background of that video, and he actually said on purpose he put the cat in the background because people didn't believe that he could really rap that fast. People thought that he was just
Like
ramping
speeding it
up.
up, yeah.
Yes.
So he wanted you to see the cat's movement in real time.
So
I
you'd
get
see
it.
the cat, and you would put like a wall clock in the background, so you can see like the second hand move.
That's
That's
good.
smart.
Prove. Yeah. So I remember seeing that, and then seeing his career evolve. For a moment in my life, I was neighbors with his bassist.
Okay.
I had no idea that it was his bassist at all. It was one day that he invited me into his apartment. He's like, yeah, we're having a party. You guys should come in and check it out. And I was like, sure, yeah. And I just assumed that we were with his band. And then I went over to his fridge to grab a beer. And then I noticed on the fridge was a Watsky bumper sticker. And I went back into the living room and I was like, oh, you guys listen to Watsky? I love
listen
that guy.
to him.
Yeah. And then the guy looks at me. He's like, we're his band. I'm his
You
bassist.
idiot.
Watsky was here like 5 minutes ago.
Did you just faint like a
freaked
schoolgirl?
out.
Danielle.
I was fangirling at that point.
Hang on, Daniel. Can we recreate that scene? I'll be the bassist, you'll be you.
Okay. Hey, I noticed that you had a Watsky bumper sticker on your fridge. You guys listen to Watsky?
Cha. We don't just listen to him, we play for him.
What?
Yeah, I'm his bassist.
You all play for him?
Yes, Daniel. Join us. Join us. And then he dies. Yeah.
Possibly
That's how it happens.
Possibly
yeah.
the worst acting I've ever witnessed in my life.
I am no actor. I've never claimed to be an actor. I like acting, but I'm not good at it.
Well, that's a pretty cool story. I like that. That's a great story.
Yeah. That was wild to meet those guys. And then I saw him finally in concert when he was here, and he is just amazing.
Now, did the bass player hook you up with nice seats? Did you do that?
No. He's since changed bands,
okay.
which, I mean, is nice to have. When your name is the name of the band, like you can just replace those guys pretty easily. But
That's true.
so
That is true.
That's the nice thing about doing that.
David
Pat,
Bowie.
it sounds like you got experience with this.
David Bowie could have anyone play behind him. You're going to see David Bowie.
Yeah.
Right. Same with Weird Al.
Well, there was only one
I know
band
he
member
hasn't
change.
changed, but he could like just rearrange the whole band.
Yeah.
If he
it's-
wanted to.
Yeah. Well, like the newest member of his band was Ruben, and he's been with him since 1991. So
He's the new guy.
Yeah,
He's the
still
new guy.
his engineer, or like one of his recording engineers, be the guitarist. I forget his name. Who he had on there for that.
Rick Derringer.
Rick Derringer. Yeah, that's who it was. Rick Derringer used to.
I host a music podcast.
Oh yeah, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
But we had one of his earliest members, which was a friend of his in college was Joe Early.
Okay.
And this guy had no musical background whatsoever. They just basically gave him a bass guitar, and they were just like, just hit this note, hit this note, hit this note.
And that's what he would do.
Yeah.
It's hysterical.
So they would just give him all the easy instruments, like here's a bass, here's a kazoo, here's a tambourine, and he would just do all those. We got to talk to Joe Early for our show, which was really cool to hear about like the early L days. And we talked to him about a song called Orgy on My Own, which
I don't know that song, but
it's
a deep cut.
It's a really, really deep cut. It's one of those songs where everyone in the Al community knows that he wrote it, but no one has actually heard him sing it at all. And they figure, oh, that song is just way too raunchy for Al to go into.
He doesn't go there.
Yeah, but the recording that you can hear online is Joe Early singing that song.
Wow.
When we got in contact with him, he's like, oh yeah, I have some recordings from when we played at Knott's Berry Farm early in the day. And he sent us all those recordings, and we actually started recording ourselves as we're listening to the song just to get our reactions. And then we started freaking out because he not only just gave us the recordings of him singing it, but we actually have one of the only recordings of Al singing that song.
That's pretty cool.
My God, you should be like a detective, Dan. You shouldn't be doing podcasts.
Yeah.
You could have solved the crime of the Zodiac Killer.
There was two stories in a row from Daniel where his mind had been blown. Watsky and Al.
Yeah.
No, my mind's never blown. Sometimes I just talk to a person and they're like, oh, yeah, just look me up online, we'll talk. And then I realize, I'm like, oh, this person's actually has like substantial followers or something. I have no idea who they are, but
That was Robert Downey Jr. I didn't even know.
I thought he looked familiar. He was Iron Man.
The newest artist I've been listening to, because I have a 14-year-old daughter and I drive her to and from school every day, so...
You let her pick the music?
There's some mornings where I'm like, I really just Daddy needs to listen to his music to get through this drive. But no, I do. We take turns, and she likes a lot of the music that I listen to. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with.
That's fortunate.
With Todd Rundgren. But
I am not.
I've been on a big Todd Rundgren kick lately. He's been around since the late 60s, early 70s. And one morning I was listening to my Todd Rundgren mix again, and my 14-year-old daughter says, "You know what, Dad? This is the best music." Which really made me feel good because she was really into it. But her newest artist that she loves is Billie Eilish.
Right.
Loves her. And like she wanted me to get Billie Eilish tickets, and Billie Eilish is playing like 4 shows out here, and I could not, even with my connections. I have some connections. I couldn't get tickets.
He's in the industry, guys. We don't want to brag.
Not in the industry. I write reviews for popculturebeast.com, and because of my podcast, I'm able to score free tickets and whatnot, but I couldn't get them online to buy them, sold out, and I couldn't get any for review.
You know how I know she's popular? I've heard of her.
You've heard of her.
I've heard of her. Yeah, that's like megastar. Because whenever someone gets famous nowadays, I'm like, where did they come from? Like Cardi B, I had no idea where she came from. I had no idea where James Corden came from. Who are all these people popping up?
I'm still confused by James Corden and where he came from. But
Sorry, I'm
confused by James Corden.
like, do we like him? Are we supposed to like him?
I do not like James Corden.
I do not like him.
Yeah. Yeah,
Not
this
my
is a very
thing.
anti-Corden podcast.
Yeah, it's not,
Okay, cool. Because I'm still confused on like, should I? But I don't feel like I should.
I don't know how
I think
carpool karaoke got so popular.
You've definitely given him enough chance.
Yeah.
Here's what I hate about carpool karaoke. I don't mind if he's getting in a car with a celebrity and they're going to drive around. I don't think they're driving either. That's being pulled by a trailer. Fuck that noise. But I don't care.
Coming from the Uplyft guy.
Yeah, hey, those cars were not pulled by a trailer. Those were really driven by people. I don't mind. It's a good gimmick. It's fun. It's, anyone would think, oh, I wish I would have thought of that. What I hate is the cheesy way they get into it sometimes. Like the Barbra Streisand one, he pretends like he has a flat tire, and then a car pulls up and rolls down the window, and it's Barbra Streisand. Hey, James, are you okay? Barbara, I've got a flat tire. I'll give you a ride. Great. And then we'll sing because now there's cameras around. Fuck that. When I worked in reality TV, I would story produce. One of the first shows I worked on, we're supposed to be going up to this guy's door, and we're knocking on the door with cameras, and he's going to open up the door. We're surprising this guy. And we do that, and we do whatever we're supposed to do. Then the field producer goes, okay, now we're going to go inside and get an angle from when he opens the door so you see us. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, we have to get the other shot. I go, that doesn't make any sense. If I'm at home and I see that shot, that takes me out of it because I go, there's a camera inside.
Because there's a camera there. They're expecting them.
Yeah. And he's like, that's just the way we do it. And I'm like, why don't we go up to the door and then he can let us in, and we can loop around. You know what I mean? And get inside. But I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I do
Terrible.
that to Dan's house all the time. I go around the back, I put a camera there, and I go, surprise, Dan.
Yeah, I see so many things in reality television. There's another thing I learned in reality television is it's something called frankenbiting. Have you ever heard that?
I have not.
They'll go through all your interviews and they'll cut it together. They'll make like if they wanted to have a line where Daniel says, when it comes to Gage, he's just annoying. I mean, he might have said, when it comes to Gage, he'll do anything for you. He's
Annoyingly fun.
No, he's a fantastic guy. But
Yeah.
then they go through the transcripts and they find out where you say, he's annoying. You might have been saying that about your brother or a friend, another guy. And what they do is we'll see you say the first part of it, and then they'll cut in the annoying part over some B-roll footage. Or like some footage of Gage like running around like a nut job or something. You know what I mean? And it's like, because I try to explain that to my mom because she would watch The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. Yeah. She's like, yeah.
People would die for that show out here.
Yeah, she's like, my mom would go, he said this. I go, no, he probably didn't say that, Mom. She's like, I saw him say it. She thinks she saw him say it because she saw him say the first two words.
Yeah.
It's horrendous. It's evil. It's really evil.
Yeah.
Anyways, I haven't listened to Billie Eilish in a while.
No.
Can I tell
Sorry,
you?
go ahead, Dan.
But that reminds me of like Judge Judy. I'd found out that in Judge Judy, that one, she's an actress, and then two, they have improv actors come in to
It's
do
awful.
those. And I was like, oh my God. And I can't tell this to my mom because
Right.
I don't want to break my poor mother's heart.
I know, right? You probably feel the same way too, where you're just like, oh mom, I just want her to believe what she believes and she's happy with it, but I'm not going to tell her that those are all actors.
When
it's not real.
Whenever I would get hired on a reality show to be story producer, you know, your first day of work, they give you your packet. You got to fill out your start packet for the day, and there's always a non-disclosure agreement in there. Every time I would pull that right out of the packet and I would throw it away. Because the packet's so
you sneaky
the
little
packet's so thick, and then I would hand it in, and I would say 50% of the time, maybe a little more, they would never know that it wasn't in there. Sometimes that, you know, and the other times they'd go, "Oh, Pat, there wasn't an NDA in your packet, so here you got to sign this," and then I would sign it. But I tried always not to sign it because I'm like, I don't want to not be able to talk about this. Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's smart. That's smart.
So do that.
I got to start doing that now.
Do that, TV people. Pull the NDA out, just throw it away, and then it's on them. It's on them if they find out or not. So they have to do their job.
Yeah. Also,
You've
Keep them on their toes.
You've done your job. You've thrown it in the trash.
to play devil's advocate in this situation,
dear.
I feel bad for the poor PA who's like having to go through all of these packets of like things that were signed by like hundreds of like crew and cast members and extras and all that stuff, and they're just like they're separating and they're like, well, he is missing. No, well, he probably did it.
For me, it was never a PA. It was always like a production coordinator. So it was someone up the chain. So they're making more money
And they
than
are
me.
also getting paid regardless, so
Yeah.
they're doing their job.
Yeah. Exactly, Gage.
Thank you.
Yeah, my dad used to do this thing before. He told me whenever you're signing a contract, if you see something that you just don't like, just cross it out.
Yeah.
Just like put a pen
You
through
can
it.
do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Redact it.
Yeah, you can. Because I remember I premiered one of my documentaries at a movie theater, and in the contract...
Get it, Dan. You made a documentary. God.
But in the contract, it said, like, if any damages are done or if we have to sue you for any reasons, any legal action, I am the one who's responsible for any of the legal costs. So I just I crossed it
out of there.
Yep. Signed it, handed it to them. They looked it over the contract, even with the crossed out section. They're like, okay, fine. Yeah,
Cool.
we'll do this.
Yeah. Good job.
Right?
Good job.
Yeah.
Now with your phone, too, take pictures of that.
So
On Uplyft, we would have them sign a release form afterwards. I said that earlier.
Yeah.
And only one person took a picture of it. Only one person was like, can I take a picture of this?
People
Yeah,
are
do whatever you
too
want.
willing to sign things nowadays.
They would say, and a lot of people, and it was long, and they would say, well, what does this mean? And I would just say, it's just so we can use your beautiful face and your nice words. Oh, okay.
I wouldn't trust a guy coming into my lift and saying, just sign this. It's for words and your face. and
I didn't act how I normally act. I acted nice. So they
like,
did it.
okay, well, now that you threw that in there, maybe I would have. I also wanted to ask you about your longevity of your podcast. How long have you been doing your podcast?
It'll be, I think, 9 years in, well, it will be 9 years in June.
I have never committed anything to 9 years of my
Yeah.
time.
We have episode 407 dropped last Thursday. We drop every Thursday at 1 a.m. I've never missed an episode. I've never missed a...
That's the trick, man. You got to be consistent with all that.
when people ask me about doing a podcast, I have some things I tell them all the time. I go, number one is be consistent. I go, because can you imagine if you went to watch Game of Thrones and some guy came on and just said, yeah, it's going to be on Tuesday this week. Be like, what? No, that's not how it works. It's supposed to be on Sunday night. The other is have good audio quality, because it doesn't matter what your content could be the best thing going, but if it's not listenable audio-wise, people won't stick around for it.
No.
Also, find something that you love and have that be what you're going to talk about. Because if it's your passion, then you won't
shows through.
And you won't get bored.
Yeah.
Because there's never once been a time when I've been at the house and I thought to myself, I got to go podcast. Because once that happens, then it's probably time to stop doing it. And my other thing is, because a lot of people go, so I'm going to do a podcast. When can I anticipate starting to make money?
No.
And I'm just like, no, look.
Yeah, no one goes into podcasts for money.
No, it took me, there's people that do, Mark Maron. But there's wildly exceptions to the rule. You got to have many, downloads and et cetera. But I even waited, I didn't start a Patreon page until year 5.
Hey, plug your Patreon real quick.
Just go to, I think it's patreon.com/Rock Solid Podcast.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just like promoting people who I like.
And go to rocksolidpodcast.com for all things Rock Solid. I'm at Pat_Francis on Twitter with a blue check. At Rock Solid Show without the blue check. But yeah, those are the things I tell people. I go, if you're getting into it and you want to make money, I go, you can build an audience and then maybe it'll happen, but it's difficult to build an audience. I find that the way my audience has been built is when I have a musical guest on, and then someone is
usually hooks them.
And someone's Googling and they go, oh, Elliot Easton, the guitarist from the Cars, did a 2-hour interview on this show I've never heard of. And then they find you and then they go, oh, okay. And then they either like it or they don't, but hopefully they like it. But yeah, we have 1.7 million downloads worldwide.
Hell yeah.
And that's only since the platform I'm on is called, the hosting platform is called Art19. So they can show me the analytics. And I've been on Art19 just for I think 4 years. So that's just in the 4 years I've been with them. I don't know what, and I don't know if that counts.
What were you on
iTunes.
before, if you don't mind me asking?
Just Libsyn.
Yeah, I'm on Libsyn currently.
Yeah, and Libsyn's good, and it looks, they've souped it up a little bit. It looks a little bit nicer. You can make it look nicer. But Art19 is stellar. But you have to be asked to be on Art19.
Pat, maybe they need a recommendation, a wink, wink, wink.
Well, you might be able to inquire and find out, but it's very easy to use. It looks sweet. They have all these analytics. It's like I can even look what my top 7 most downloaded shows are, and I can see in what other countries I have a stronghold, if I do or if I don't. It's pretty cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
I can do that. Well, you can, but you got to pay premium for Libsyn.
Yeah.
But just for clarification, this podcast is just something I do for fun.
Yeah.
And it's something that
and same with
makes
me.
me happy. Yeah.
And that's why I do my podcast too, for fun, and it makes me happy.
Yeah. Okay. I am not on a consistent schedule at all, so I'm sorry.
Why aren't you? Because you could literally, there's no reason not to be. You could record 4 episodes in one day if you wanted to, and then upload them immediately to drop. I have 11.
Yeah, stockpile.
I have 11 episodes in the can right now, and my next 2 have already been uploaded to Libsyn, and they're ready to drop at 1 a.m. this Thursday and the following Thursday.
I'll be brutally honest about this. I'm not as passionate of this podcast as I was a couple of years ago.
Okay, so are you?
And I'm doing other stuff besides the podcast now.
Okay.
And this podcast is just kind of like a cherry on top of it all. Yeah.
All right.
So if you get an episode, good for you.
But you do know that it's hard to build an audience if you're not consistent. You
Absolutely.
do realize it. Okay.
Yeah. It's not like I'm releasing every month and being like, why don't I have more followers?
And I also tell people, I go, look, if you can't do a weekly thing, then do every other week.
Yeah, bi-weekly.
You're bi-weekly, twice a month. Do once a month if you want to, but be consistent no matter what you do. So I expect you to pick it up a little bit, Gage.
Yeah.
I really want you to step it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pat. Just put the fire under my ass a little bit.
Yeah.
Dan has been doing a wonderful job with that on Weird Alphabet, though.
Yeah.
So I'll applaud Dan.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Are you going alphabetically too with the songs?
Yeah, so we're going alphabetically with the songs, but not only that, but we're trying to do a lot more deep cuts as well into maybe recordings he's done that aren't included on the album. And the thing is with Al is that he doesn't stop
No.
at all. So we're going through his like 40 plus year career. And it just, I think when we actually get him on the show, we're just going to be like, just stop for a moment so that we can catch up.
Hang on, this is going to be Avengers Endgame. We're talking 3 hours
What
here.
song are you currently on? Do you know? What's the next record going to be?
We did, we're in the S's right now, actually.
He's pulling out his phone. He's
You,
going to
you
look it
did
up.
Saga
Well,
Begins recently, right?
Well, the thing is that I edit all the shows,
Okay.
and just
God
like
bless
you,
you, man.
like,
God bless you.
or I edit all these sessions, but I forget what ones were being released that
Okay,
week.
gotcha.
So that's the reason why.
And do you play bits of the song throughout the show?
Yeah.
Good.
So, we just did "She Drives Like Crazy."
Which is takeoff on the Fine Young Cannibal song.
Yes.
She drives me crazy.
She drives me crazy.
All right, cool.
Which the lead singer was in a movie in which he was driven around by this woman in Europe and whatnot. Like on that show, I wanted to debunk something, this idea that women drivers are worse. So I actually went onto the National Highway Institute to look up statistics to see if that was actually true. And turns out men were twice as likely to get into a car crash than women were. And I looked it up.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I looked up because the song came out in '89, so I was like, okay, maybe the statistics have changed, and the latest numbers they had were from 2017, and it's still true that men are twice as likely to get into a car accident than women. So we were able to debunk that.
Let's go around the table. Are you a good driver, Gage?
Yeah.
All right. Daniel, are you a good driver?
Probably not. I don't think so. Yeah.
I like.
Hey, I'm at the table too.
I'm sorry. I was going to explain. Go ahead, Pat. Are you a good driver?
I'm not great.
Okay. Well, thank you for being honest. I want to think
I'm
this
better.
Is an open
I'm
place.
better when I have people in the car that I have to be mindful of. Like if my daughters are in the car, or my wife or my daughter and her friends, then I'm probably at my best. But if I'm by myself, probably not great.
Yeah, you're a little fast and you're a little furious.
I'm a little fan, a little loose.
Ooh.
Yeah. I want to go back to your podcast for a moment. You said you've been doing this for 8 years now. I guess, how did the idea start? Did you want to do a podcast first, or was it like a radio show?
It had not even dawned on me to do a podcast. At the time, I was frequently a guest on another podcast, and the two guys that run that podcast, they were going to start like a podcast network. They're going to do, and these shows are going to be under our umbrella. And they said, we want you to do a podcast. And I was dumbfounded. I'm like, well, what will I do a podcast about? I have no idea. And they said, well, you love music, so you do a music podcast. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it just happened. I had a co-host back then. His name was Gary Lucy. These guys said, you need to pick a co-host. I'm like, I don't even know who it would be. And I named a couple people. I'm like, and I wasn't even friends with Gary Lucy, but he would always post about music on his Facebook page, and he had a completely different musical taste than me. And so I wanted that because I wanted it to be different. You don't want to hear two guys at live two guys talking about AC/DC. Every So
AC/DC is great. Yeah. And a podcast.
I contacted Gary. I said, "Do you want to do this podcast?" He said, "Yeah, it sounds great." And I said, "What will we do for the first episode?" And I think he said, "Let's do debut albums because it's our first episode." And we showed up. We didn't plan anything. We didn't do a test show. We showed up. We turned the mics on, and what you hear on our first episode, that was the first episode. And then we did that together for about 127 episodes, and then Gary, for whatever reason, didn't want to do it anymore. But I still was headlong into it. So then,
I had a co-host that didn't want to do it anymore. He's a doctor now.
Yeah. So then I decided I'd have 4 rotating co-hosts. So I got 2 men and 2 women: Christy Stratton, April Richardson, Mike Siegel, and Murray Valeriano. And then we did it. And then
Very nice guys too.
Yeah, everyone was cool. Everyone's still cool. And then I started to weave in musical guests. I started to get more and more musical guests. And then I decided that once I had my Patreon page, there's a tier to where if you pay $25 a month, you can come on and co-host. And people have come in from Canada and all over the country. They'll fly in, they get to pick the topic, and we do like a 2-hour, 3-hour podcast. I give them their money's worth. And so that's been so much fun. I've met so many people that I wouldn't have met because of the podcast.
Okay.
It's really cool.
Let me just ask you.
Did I cover it enough, Daniel, or was that enough?
I still have some more questions, but let's hear.
Yeah, no, Daniel. Please,
Okay.
Daniel, please.
Yeah. Okay. So then, with the format of your show, how did that evolve from when you first started, and what were the obvious changes that you had to either take out, or you were realizing what worked either with yourselves or with the audience?
I don't know if we ever stopped doing stuff we were doing before. I know that what happened was the shows got longer because at first we just kept it around 45 minutes and we would each bring 5 songs depending on what the topic was. Okay. But then now there's no time constraint. Sometimes it's 90 minutes. Sometimes it's 2 hours. Sometimes we did an XTC episode recently. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes. I mean, and now we might play clips from 30 or more songs now and not just 5 or 10. So it's
Does that affect your view count or your download count? Do people not download as long as episodes, or are they just fully on board?
I've had some iTunes reviews that say the episodes are too long, but that's crazy to me because you don't have to listen to all 3 hours at one time. That's the beauty of a podcast. You can listen
just put it down.
You can listen to an hour at a time, or and sometimes we'll talk for 20 minutes up front before we even get to the topic, and people have complained about that. But I'm like, well, you can just fast forward to where we start the topic. You know what I mean? It's so I just do the show I want to do. I try to be entertaining and I try to have fun, and hopefully that comes through. And we try to do a good job. That's all.
What were the musical guests that you've had?
I'll give you my most recent ones.
Okay.
Randy Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive, and his people contacted me. So that's happens now too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Amazing.
I had Nancy Wilson from Heart.
Oh, I love that band.
It's amazing. I had Sean Cassidy because he was a teen idol and a recording artist in the late 70s, early 80s. And what was great about that was this was only the second podcast he had ever done, and it was the first podcast that he ever talked about his music.
What did you talk about the first time?
Well, he wasn't on my show. He was on Dana Gould's show.
Oh, okay.
I happened to see that Sean, I'd been wanting to get Sean Cassidy for a long time, and then I saw he was on Dana Gould's show, so I thought, he must be open to doing a podcast now. But when he was on Dana's show, they didn't talk about his music because he writes for TV. He writes for a show called New Amsterdam. He's written a bunch of stuff. So I got in touch with him through Twitter, and then he emailed me directly, and he wanted some links to listen to some shows with guests.
Right.
So I sent him links one day, and the next day I got an email from him that just said, I'm in, which made me feel good because that meant he enjoyed what I was doing. And then he said, could I pick the songs we play? I said, sure. So he picked the songs, and that's what we did. It was fantastic. I loved it. Really loved it.
Sounds like a fun show.
And thank you. And,
Gotta listen to it sometime.
And May 1st, I'm going to be recording with Richie Ramone.
No way.
Drummer from the Ramones. He was the third drummer of the Ramones.
Yeah, they've had a handful of drummers, haven't they?
They've had 3 drummers. Richie was there for about 4 years. He's on 3 albums. So he's done many tours, and he lives out here. So, and he has a new book out called I Know Better Now. My life before, during, and after the Ramones. What's also great is once, because I've been doing it so long and I've built up like a thing, I contacted the book publisher. I said, hey, Richie's going to be on my show. Can you send me 5 books that he can sign so I can give away to the listeners? Because on my Patreon, I give prizes away almost weekly on my Patreon page.
Right.
And I get all the prizes for free from publishers and record labels and all kinds of stuff like that. So they sent me 5 hardback books, and he'll sign them, and I'll give those away to my listeners. So it's pretty cool.
Amazing.
That's rad. Yeah. Whenever I have guests on the show.
You got me a coffee, so that was a nice
I got
prize.
you a coffee, yeah.
How did you know I wanted this?
Just instinct. It was in the subtext of the emails we were sending.
It was also in the writer, and it was
Buy me drinks.
Yeah. For context, Pat wanted a coffee, and he said...
and a bowl of green M&Ms.
And a bowl of green M&Ms. And he asked for it, and I'm like, oh, he's joking, but I'll get him a coffee because I think it would be a good goof.
I'm going to give you my order. I said you have to go to, you have to bring me something from Coffee Bean. That's why I said you have to.
I didn't read that part. I just saw, bring me something from Coffee Bean.
Maybe that was what it is. Bring me something. And I put a large hot mocha latte with 2 shots instead of 3 and extra hot. That's what I want. Very specific.
No. Yeah. And at the end, you wrote, yum.
I did write yum. I did write
Pat
yum.
has a funny way of doing emails. I forget sometimes that he follows my Twitter, and I try to get him on the show one time, and he just replies back, "You're sick. Do not do this show."
Oh yeah, because you were sick one.
I was sick, and I posted on Twitter, I don't feel so good, or something like that.
You're like, I have snot coming out of my nose, blah, blah, blah. He posted that on Twitter, and we were supposed to record like the next day, and I just emailed you and go, hey, you're sick. I'm not coming on the show.
I got to be a lot more careful what I put on my Twitter nowadays.
Feeling great today.
Feeling great. Please come on. No communicable
I should just lie on Twitter nowadays.
You don't lie on Twitter?
I
What are
mean,
you doing with your life, man?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people do. Like, did you know what, like, our president lies on Twitter?
I doubt that. Come on.
Okay, all right, yeah. Trying to get Pat on the show for like 3 years, and he's our white whale. And thank you so much for.
And we let him go. He's gone.
And we let him go. He's gone. He left the studio. Dan, how have you been doing?
Okay. How are you?
I'm doing good. A little bit sad, but you know.
This podcast has really gone downhill when Pat left.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, who's listening nowadays? Hey, Mom, how's it going? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Pat.
Thank you for agreeing to come here to my place where I record and doing it. That was very helpful
Absolutely,
for me.
yeah.
I really
Did you
like
want to
this
go in my
space.
studio apartment?
I did not want to come to your place.
Oh, okay.
This is a much...
I've done podcasts in apartments. Like I went to this one guy's place. I go, where do I sit? He's like, just sit there. And it's a chair covered with cat hair, like covered with
I don't
it.
have cats, so
I understand.
That's my thing.
I do
going
have
on.
a cat, so I don't hate cats. But I'm like, take a lint roller to this chair before you tell a guest to sit down.
Right? Yeah. You gotta vacuum or something.
Be
when you have
professional.
Yeah.
I try.
Yeah, but there's
No,
still cat hair all over your furniture, even though you don't have a cat. And I'm still confused by
Yeah,
that.
that's strange.
Dan,
It's a little bit strange.
Dan, you swore never to tell anyone. But yeah, my studio apartment's not bad. If you want to come over and watch Game of Thrones sometime,
What
you're
is
welcome to.
Where's your studio apartment located? What part?
Glendale.
Glendale.
Yes.
What do you pay for a studio apartment in Glendale?
I pay $11.50.
All right, that's not bad.
No, it's not the worst, and
No.
I got my own kitchen, I got my own bathroom, and yeah, I really like the place.
Pleasant.
And I get a parking spot, which is
That's great.
amazing,
That's amazing.
in LA. Yeah.
Plus, recording here was good because it's like I live in Woodland Hills, you live in Glendale. That's a track.
Oh, it's right in the middle,
But
right?
here, this is right in the middle. Perfect.
Nice.
Studio City.
Nice. We got
Where
this
do you
pod
live?
thing
Where do you
down.
live, Daniel?
I'm in North Hollywood. So
Do you have a
just, like,
studio
right down the road.
apartment?
No, I live with 2 other roommates. So
All right. Do you get along with those dudes? Do you know
do.
them?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. It wasn't like you just Craigslisted those guys.
No, not anymore.
Oh my God.
Cool.
I don't know if I should tell this story, but I my first 2 years out here, I had a Craigslist roommate, and
I mean, you did mention him earlier. And yeah, this is your Chekhov's gun.
Yes.
yeah, okay. So, anyways, yeah, I had this roommate. I'll just tell one story. I've told this on the podcast before, but it's a good story.
It's new to me.
Yeah, it's new to Pat. And I was going out of town for Christmas.
Okay.
And I went at my brother's place. It was a great Christmas. We played Jimmy Buffett's Christmas album. We had breakfast. It was great. It was a wonderful time. So I was going back home, and I get a call from the police. And they said, "Hey, do you live at this apartment?" And I said, "Yes, police, I do." And they said, "Cool. We broke down your door because we thought there was a baby in there." And I'm like, "Sure, but back up a little bit." They're like, "All right, so your roommate came into this police station and she had something wrapped up, and we thought
Your
it was
roommate was a female.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. She had something wrapped up, and it looked like a baby, and we tried to get it from her. She wouldn't let us. Eventually, we found out it was a Coke bottle, and so we thought there was a baby in your apartment, so we bashed down your door to find this baby. Turns out you didn't have a baby in there. And I'm like, "Yeah, no shit. Did you know I lived there?" They're like, "Nah."
Now I don't have a door.
Yeah, I didn't have a door for quite some time, and I had to get the city to pay for it,
Oh my God.
and now I don't live there anymore.
When you speak, your tone of voice is never serious. When you're talking with the police, do you change that up a bit?
Oh, yeah. I'm like, "Hello, sir."
All right.
"Yes, sir." Yeah. For the sake of this like comedy podcast, I turn it up a little.
Like, if
I'm
you-
just like
Yeah,
squeaky.
like,
and
if you talk like
smarmy.
that to the police, they would probably come over and then knock all the windows out of your apartment.
Yeah, they would knock more doors down. So, in conclusion, living alone, you have a lot less of a chance to live with a crazy person.
That's true. Or
Unless
or
you
you
are.
live, or yes, unless you are the crazy person. I saw an interview once with Steve Carell when The Office was still on TV, and he said every office has a Michael Scott. And if you think your office doesn't have a Michael Scott, then you're probably the Michael Scott.
Wise words from Steve Carell.
Yes. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Steve, come on the podcast sometime. We'd love to have you.
So we're wrapping it up?
Well, yeah, we're wrapping it. We're wrapping it. When we get to like my crazy roommates, it's time to wrap it up.
All right.
But thank you so much, Pat, for coming on the podcast.
This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed hanging with Daniel. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for the coffee. This was really fun.
Yeah, you're welcome to come back anytime.
I very much appreciate it. You're not going to do it anymore. You already said you're done.
That's right. If it's not going to be consistent, we might as well just throw it out the window, to be quite honest. Yeah. But yeah, we go around and do final thoughts on what we've talked about today.
Okay, cool.
So, Pat, do you have any final thoughts on what we've talked about today?
My final thoughts would just be that you two are very enjoyable citizens of the planet to talk to. I wish you continued success in your podcast endeavors, Daniel, and I hope that you get Weird Al on your show. And Gage.
Oh my God! You almost called me Gabe there.
I wish you continued success in your other things that are bringing you more joy than your podcast.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, I was going to ask you if I could plug something, but it's my podcast.
Yeah, you can plug whatever you want.
Doing a new series called Gauge Your Interest. I talk about movies and aspects of movies. The last episode, I talked about my experience with Video Store and a little bit of the history about it. So if you want to check that out on youtube.com.
Very nice.
Check it out. Mm-hmm. Dan, do you have any final thoughts?
So, Pat, thank you for this. Listening to your podcast and then actually talking to you, like, and all the advice that you give, like, is definitely inspirational. So, thank you so much for this and giving us your time to do so and allowing us to use the space. Like, I absolutely love this studio.
Well, this is my wife's. My wife is Pilar Alessandra.
Friend of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast. She's been on here. Her business is On the Page. She's a big-time screenwriting teacher.
I like how you looked over. It's like, what was it?
I was just looking around. She's a big-time screenwriting teacher in Los Angeles. She's taught all over the world. And when I say that, I'm serious. She's been to China, Australia, Warsaw, Dublin, London, Paris, Cartagena, of course, Canada. I mean, she's been all over the world, so she's big time. But this is her facility. This is where she teaches in Studio City, and it also doubles as podcast studio for her podcast On the Page and my podcast.
Yeah, shout out to On the Page. Shout out to Pilar because I love her to death.
Yeah, she's great. She's pretty great. So, but thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
also, my documentary has a Twitter. It's at Uplyft Doc, and Lift is with a Y. And I'm sure we'll be putting updates and stuff on there as the film takes form.
Yeah,
So,
I can't wait for that.
That's all.
My final thoughts are...
I thought you gave your final thoughts.
No,
okay.
Calm down, Pat.
I thought he did.
My final thoughts are, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Pat.
No problem.
It's
my pleasure. I loved it.
It was a tough road coming here, but you know what? By golly, we got there.
I expected to hate it, and I actually loved
Really?
it. Yeah,
Did you?
I did, and I loved it.
Well, it's like, honestly, just building up to that point, it's like Endgame. You can't be satisfied with it. Dan, I always love having you on the podcast. I give you a hard time, but you know what? You're a good friend,
and I deserve it.
Calm down. And yeah, if you have a project that you're passionate about, make sure to do it consistently. Don't be like me.
Be like me.
Be like Dan and Pat.
Yes.
I am a little less consistent, but that's because I put love into it. Fuckers. No, but seriously, thank you so much. I had a great time. And that's the podcast. Dan, do you want to wrap it up with a fact about Pat that you have learned that Pat doesn't know about?
So, Pat seems to be allergic to the sun. Like, every time that he goes out into the sun, looks up, immediately sneezes as soon as he goes outside. So I'm pretty convinced that you're just allergic to the sun.
Do you think he's a vampire?
Now, am I supposed to say if that's true or not?
No, you're supposed to say it is true.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm so glad it's a cloudy day today because I haven't been sneezing at all. Thank you. Thank you, God.
Amen.